All right, everybody, we got to talk about Snapchat. So let's go into the earnings and what ended up happening. This was a remarkable thing that has happened from the earnings. Their shares have dived 23% as of last night after hours when they released earnings, but now they're down 35% following poor earnings report, which is today. Now, a couple of things. First, let's go over top line metrics, and then we're going to talk about why it's failed that. Okay, so main things. Earnings per share, a loss of 2 cents adjusted versus a loss of 1 cent, according to Renovative survey. So earnings per share, they missed on, which was the best. Then revenue, 1.1 billion versus 1.14 billion. So they missed on revenue. But then DAUs, 347 million versus 344.2 million expected. This stat right here, this combination of these two stats are the most important when it comes to understand what's going on with Snapchat. When you increase global daily active users, meaning you have 344 million people are expected to use your product, but instead you say, actually, 347 million people across the world are using our product every single day, but your revenue is 1.1 billion, which means it's less than what's expected. That means you got a sort of like convoluted double bind of issues here. Either your monetization sucks, which means you're getting more users and you're not able to monetize them effectively, which means there's a monetization problem, or you don't have the money being spent in the platform in order to effectively serve more ads because you have an advertising business model. I think for Snapchat, it might be both things. There might be less ad spend coming into the actual platform, which is bad because of a macroeconomic recession that potentially might happen. Ad spend gets cut first for these companies. That's the biggest thing from their budget. But number two is, like, even if they have money coming in, if they're not effectively monetizing, meaning like they're not getting people to really see the ads and encourage new advertising or click on the ads, which means they can't really show that there's any, benefit to the ad, then it's also not the best, right? And that means they're growing DAUs, but those DAUs are not using the product in the way that the company wants them to use the product, which is not just by posting silly photos, but actually like engaging with the advertisements, because that's the whole point. The article writes, it's the latest chapter in a tough year for Snap, whose stock is almost 2/3 of its value in 2022. It was at 83 back in September 2021. Obviously, major fall. It's at $10 right now. In May, Snap said it wouldn't meet the second quarter guidance it set the prior month, leading to a 43% plunge. That was when we knew, okay, something's going on in the ad market. If one of the biggest advertising companies in terms of social media is saying, hey, we're not going to be able to deliver on what we said we were going to be able to deliver because things are going bad. They cited a macroeconomic environment at that time, and now we're seeing that the macroeconomic environment was bad. So they said the second quarter of 2022 proved to be more challenging than we expected. The company said it now plans to substantially slow our rate of hiring as well as the rate of our operating expense growth, and they cited a couple problems. Apple's 2021 iOS update is still looming on Snapchat. That's not the best thing in the world for them. TikTok, as a meaningful competitor, is also looming on Snapchat. That's not a good thing for them as well, especially because TikTok is more addicting. There's more of a chance to gain a following. There's more of an ability to actually discover new people, whereas Snapchat, you're just messaging your friends. You're not really discovering the new people in terms of the discovery of content, which I think is the single biggest thing that matters when it comes to social media and content exploration. So you've got these two things going on that's just like not good at the end of the day for Snapchat. It's not good for this type of a business, and it's not good for this type of a advertising method. It's not good for the method to invest in the business if your long-term bet is advertising. So I think then we have to ask ourselves an incredibly important question. What are you investing in Snapchat for? They increase DAUs, they can't increase revenue. There's Apple iOS issues that they haven't worked on, and it's been a year, and TikTok is basically eating their lunch. Facebook and Google earnings are going to be next week. We're going to see what happens. But one of the things to think about is that if ad spend is going down for Snapchat, that ad spend might start getting consolidated for Facebook and Google, because if people aren't spending on Snapchat, they might go to Facebook and Google. So even though people are saying it's going to be bad for Meta and Google in terms of ad spend and ad spend going down on a macro, a lot of the ad consolidation that might happen might be to the most effective players. Remember, Snapchat and Twitter, the reason they both kind of suck at ads is because they are impressions-based advertisers versus performance-based. Meaning performance-based is if you click on an ad, the advertiser makes money, Facebook or Google, only if you click on it, which means it's more valuable. Impressions-based is, hey, we showed your ad. We don't know if people really cared about it, but at least we showed it in our inventory of content, and you have to pay us for that. That's generally not as effective as performance-based advertising, obviously, because performance makes more money. So the question is then, why would you bet on Snapchat? Well, there's two reasons. I would definitely not bet on Snapchat. I'm very uncomfortable with betting on them as a social media play, but there's two sort of fundamental reasons. Number one is that they are still the best place to find Gen Z. Gen Z is still using their product heavily from ages 13 to 35. So if you're State Farm or you're Mountain Dew and you want to be the #1 soda associated with 13-year-olds, then you have to target them at an early age. So you are able to make impressions on them at a young age. That's incredibly important. Number two is AR/VR. Now, again, this is something I'm not bullish on, but AR/VR is this concept of like, hey, we have glasses, we have filters. We were the first guys who were innovating in AR/VR. And if we're able to show augmented reality and virtual reality at a unique value proposition to the end consumer, then we have a much, much more broader appeal to Gen Z and to advertisers because we are the company of the metaverse. The problem is you've got Meta saying they're the company of the metaverse. You've got Google, you've got Apple creating a headset. If you don't own the headset, if you don't own the developer platform, which people build apps on top of, like, I don't see Snapchat becoming that thriving ecosystem for the metaverse, AR, VR yet in a meaningful way. Maybe they will be. And if they are, then the stock is really undervalued and there's a huge bull potential there. But if they're not, then I don't know. Now, if you think Snapchat's going to be around for a while, I think it's relevant enough to at least check it out, look at their numbers, see like, hey, maybe there's some value here. But if you don't think Snap is going to be that relevant or it's going to be bought out, or you think it's like not going to be a big player in the next 5-10 years, then it's hard to sort of see what the growth story is at the end of the day. Those are my thoughts on Snapchat. Let me know what you guys think about Snapchat earnings. Definitely going to set some headwinds in the advertising market. We're going to see what happens with Meta and Google next week. That's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. But those are kind of my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you in the next one.